This is 18 October 2020, and this is the Weight of the Badge Part 2. I've already done the ruck tonight, carried 50 pounds, but while I was talking to one of my friends, I was reminded of something that I talked about earlier, and I've talked about it a couple times. But it's about people's journeys, and it's about, you hear the saying all the time, don't judge a book by its cover. And it's never truer than when you look at somebody and you figure out their journey from looking at them, and you make these judgments about them. And I had that similar experience, and for some reason when I was talking to her tonight, that just jogged back into my head because of the message that I had this morning and the other day. So I wanted to kind of backtrack to that and talk about my experience, my interaction with her, and how 3 years later I would find out just how wrong I was about her journey. So this is one of the conferences that I went to speak at, and this young lady worked at the conference. And when I got there, they had people sitting at the tables and doing the thing where they welcome you and they give you your stuff. And I was talking to one of the folks that had invited me to come up to speak at this conference, and I remember seeing her sitting at the table, thinking, this girl looks like a model. And immediately I got, she's dressed very nice. She's a very, very beautiful young lady. And so I'm immediately thinking, oh, this, I'm not sure what her role is here, but she doesn't strike me as, I don't know how to put it. She struck me as she was well off. That she looked like somebody that had a lot of money, looked like somebody that takes very good care of herself, and I just assumed that she was somehow either in modeling, TV, something like that. She did something that was media related. And just the way she carried herself, she was very confident, very outgoing, one of the most humble people I've ever met in my life. And when I go to these conferences, one of the things that I like to do is kind of sit back and watch the crowds to see how people are interacting with each other, to see the atmosphere, to see who I'm going to be speaking to. And so I was talking to the head of the conference, a couple other folks, and I'm just kind of lingering back and watching things as people are arriving and getting checked in. And every guy that came up there was just falling over this girl. And so that just furthered my thought. And we ended up, there was a big dinner that night, and just watching her, the way she carried herself, and how just very elegant, very confident. But I did notice that she was very humble. She was just like the nicest person, very, very, very down to earth. And so when I left that conference, I took that away. I just remember I didn't know anything about her. I didn't talk to her other than, saying hello and that stuff. I go back up the next year, she's working, same thing. But this time I asked one of the AV folks that I was working with, I'm like, what's her role here? What does she do? So he kind of gave me a background of what, the work that she did and why she was there, and volunteer stuff and things like that. And again, it was the same impression, though. It was just, very confident, very just everything. But again, just the most down to earth, nicest person ever. So I'm making assumptions about her, and that she's doing very well, that everything's great, she has no problems. And you would think that somebody that does this all the time, that does this work, would have a little more sense to them. But I made assumptions just like everybody else does. And we talked here and there. I think it was at the dinner again, just making small talk and stuff, and here and there throughout the conference. But the next time that I came up, the third year that I went up there to speak, there was some scheduling stuff that had to be switched up, and I was switching positions of where I was speaking, and so I was trying to get video of my talk and trying to get pictures to use for promotional stuff. And I was talking to somebody about it, and she came over and was like, "Oh, give me your phone and I'll do it." So she, I didn't ask her or anything like that. She just did all this stuff for me. And I remember at one point she works on all different aspects at this conference, and at one point the guy that would hold up the time cards, I guess he had to go, he was going to eat or something, I forget where he went, but she took over that role for a minute, and there was 2 officers that were doing a presentation, and she held up the sign. I can't remember what the time was, like 15 minutes left or something like that, but she held the card up, and she was sitting in the middle of the room where she had been taking my pictures and my video. And I just remember these two grown sergeants just stopped in the middle of their presentation and were like, "Where did you come from?" And that was kind of the whole, anytime I saw any guy around her, that was the atmosphere. It was, they just all like got tongue-tied, and and it was amusing. But I had watched this over 3 years, watched this young woman that she carried herself very well, but the thing that stuck with me was how humble she was. And she was willing to help anybody that needed help. She was willing to step in and do anything, but just how humble and down to earth she was with all these people just kind of fawning over her. And I ended up talking to her through the conference and learned that some of the stuff that she does, work with kids and stuff, kids with special needs and things like that. So at the time, I had just finished up a book, and I was like, this would be perfect. She was a camp counselor for this camp, and I was like, this would be perfect for a book talking about, the importance of camp counselors to the kids that have lost an officer. And so I went back up for a long weekend, and we started writing this book. Well, in the process of writing this book, I have to, I'm asking questions like, what's your background? Where are you from? How did you get into this? So that I can base this character off of her. And that was the premise that I had from the get-go when I first asked her if she wanted to work with me on this. I knew that I wanted to have this character be her. And I have never been so wrong about someone's journey before. What I took from this young woman, I based it on her appearance. And while the humbleness stuck with me, I based on her appearance that she was well off and just didn't have a worry in the world and was just as happy as could be, because that's how she always came off. Yet what I found talking to her throughout that weekend as we were writing was someone that had been through so many things in the short number of years that she's been here. Someone that struggled with confidence. Someone that didn't think that she was beautiful and all that stuff. And it was almost like if you watch a movie and you see all, or a play or whatever, and you see all the special effects, and then they pull back the curtain, or you watch a magician and you're like, man, how did they do it? And they pull back the curtain and you see the reality of it. And when she would leave at the end of the day to go back home, when we were writing, my heart just ached. Hearing everything she had been through, hearing her struggles, hearing about anxiety and stress, and this young woman has got, I can't even, I don't have the words to describe. She has got the biggest heart. The work that she does with kids, when she talked about it, her whole demeanor changed. She lit up. And when she talked about how the kids hung around her and ran to her and interacted with her, and in the 3 years that I had seen her on and off, and in the last year talking to her for a good part of the conference, I had never once asked about her journey. And in a matter of 3 days, 3 years were washed away. And the curtains were pulled back, and I saw someone who was struggling, and someone that knew where her safe place was, working with the kids. But that beautiful model woman that I first saw wasn't standing there anymore. She was still the beautiful woman, don't get me wrong about that, but it was just a whole different light shined on her. And I've talked about how so many times in life we make assumptions and we walk right by people without asking them questions, without getting to know them. And when we do that, we miss out on so much that can enrich our lives, that can make us better people, that can give you a whole different perspective on life. And when I left that weekend, I had the most admiration for this young woman. I was so blown away by her journey. I was so impacted by her story. And as I wrote that weekend, started to knock this book out and started writing about this counselor that was like a superhero that helped these kids understand, that helped them understand their struggles because she had been through them. And the writing just flowed because it was so easy after hearing her journey to create this hero and to create this woman that these kids looked up to, that even though she struggled, she made her journey about those kids. And when I talked to her, whenever she talked about those kids, everything changed about her. She just lit up. You could see the happiness fill up in her eyes. She had the biggest smile. While the whole time she was struggling. And I am so fortunate that I, for one, asked her to work on that project with me, but that I had the opportunity to hear her journey and to reframe how I looked at her. And this young woman holds a very special place in my heart because of that. She is one of the people that I absolutely, positively want to see succeed at everything that she does. Because while she struggles, she doesn't make her journey about herself. It's about other people, and it's about helping other people, whether it's at those conferences or whether it's working with those kids or when she talks about her friends and helping them out. It's never about her. And I think there's a lot to be learned from someone like that young woman. So when I was talking to her tonight, something just spoke to me and said, do this video because it will reference back to others that you have done. So while this is not anything to do with the ruck or the walks or that aspect of it, it is about bettering yourself, and it's about taking the time to learn about people versus making assumptions and passing by people that could change your life because you've assumed that there's nothing there for you to gain. So the next time you see somebody and something speaks to you inside to stop and talk, do it. Because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know. For me, it took 3 years to get to that point, to finally hear her journey. And I wish I had bothered to ask sooner. But I'm absolutely blessed to have her in my life and to be able to talk to her all the time. And whenever they decide to open borders up and COVID lets us actually get out and do things, to get to see her again and finish this book up. But just absolutely in a matter of 3 days, had one of the hugest impacts on my life from hearing someone's journey in my entire 48 years. And I told her I would do the video and not put her name out. But she knows who she is, and I will just repeat what I said to you earlier. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you're not amazing. Don't ever change for anyone. And don't ever think for a second that what you do does not impact so many people. Most importantly, those kids. And don't ever let anyone make you think less of yourself or make you feel less than you should because of their insecurities and issues. Because you, my dear, are an absolutely amazing, amazing young lady. And I am blessed to know you. I'm honored to call you my friend. I'm honored to have you in my life. And I wish nothing for you but the greatest successes at everything you do. And I cannot think of another person that deserves to find happiness and success more than you do. So with that said, I will end this as I always do. If you are working tonight, take care of one another, watch each other's backs, and get home to your families, your loved ones. Tell them how important they are each and every day, because tomorrow is not promised, especially to the little ones. My brothers and sisters that are home and abroad, that are protecting this great country of ours, thank you for what you do, and God bless your families for the sacrifices that they make while you were out keeping us safe. Hope everyone has had a great weekend. Have a good night. Take care, and I will talk to you tomorrow.